Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. In a few moments, I'll be sharing my thoughts and feelings on episode 7 of Married at First Sight Nashville. And for this video, I'll give a brief episode breakdown, followed by an overall episode rating, and I'll share my thoughts on the couples for the episode. Now if you're new to the channel and you enjoy my content, then feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to do big things around here, and any support is much appreciated. But without any further delay, let's jump right in. The episode kicks off with a continuation of the end of episode 6. We see Clint taking some time with the fellas to talk about his issues with Gina. Now during this scene, I think Airris gave some solid advice to Clint, which in a nutshell was for Clint to acknowledge that what he may have said could have been said in a better way, and for him to see Gina's perspective in all of this. But me personally, I believe that people should say what they mean and mean what they say, and shouldn't be apologetic about it, especially if they didn't say something with the intent to be hurtful or malicious. But unfortunately, during the group dinner scene, Clint is essentially pressured into standing up in front of the group and publicly acknowledging that he was wrong, for stating his preferences in women, and that he will do a better job at expressing himself going forward. I think it was disappointing in watching this scene because all the women were on Gina's side, and they were acting as judge and jury with Clint, while none of the men bothered to support Clint or ask Gina to publicly acknowledge that her comments may have hurt Clint's feelings. The only other disappointing part of the scene was that the couples were individually asked to rate their marriages, which was silly in my opinion, because these folks have only been married after knowing each other for a week at this point. And of course, very few of them were going to be comfortable enough with telling the honest truth to the entire group. But the couple say goodbye to the honeymoon, and they return to Nashville to move into their apartments. A few of the couples actually get to show their homes to their spouse, and the episode ends with conflict between Dominique and Mac. Now overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll give this episode a solid 3. As stated before, I was disappointed with a few aspects of the episode, but I think Chris and Nicole's journey thus far into the process is the type of connection that Married at First Sight needs to aim for when casting future participants. Now will this actually happen? Probably not, but one can only hope for a miracle. Now let's move on to the couples. First, let's talk about Gina and Clint. In Gina's first scene for the episode, she fails to acknowledge her part in the fallout that she had with Clint, while condemning Clint for speaking his mind. And unfortunately, I think Clint was in a no-win situation, because Gina seems to be the type of person that would literally be done with somebody that she felt did her wrong until they beg for her forgiveness. I still support Clint's right to publicly express his preferences in women, the same way some women support Gina's right to express her preferences in men. But outside of the group dinner scene, nothing else really notable happens between the two of them. It's still pretty obvious that they have no chemistry, and they're doing whatever the producers are telling them to do, in an effort to not make the process any more painful than it has to be. But I would be surprised if they make it to decision day. Next, there's Jasmine and Airris. During the group dinner scene, they play nice for the cameras and they make the group believe that things in their marriage are better than they seem to be. But when they're put on the spot, Airris admits that the process is a little too fast for him, while Jasmine admits that she only has one speed in the process, which is her speed. And herein lies the conundrum. Is it more realistic for Jasmine to expect somebody that she's only known for a week to fall madly in love with her? Or is it more realistic to expect Airris to fall in love during the process when he's never been in love before? The answer to these questions likely depend on who you ask, but it's pretty clear that Airris and Jasmine are nowhere near being on the same page at this point in their journey. But later on in the episode, Jasmine and Airris move into their apartment, and we can tell that Jasmine feels some sort of way that Airris is taking the lead on what he wants and where he wants to put his things without asking her for her opinion. I'm guessing that Jasmine might be more accommodating to Airris' demands if he were in love with her, or if he was giving her that good old pickle tickle on a regular basis. The only other thing worth mentioning with Airris and Jasmine is that Airris takes Jasmine to his house for the tour. Airris' house is your typical bachelor pad, but I do think that Jasmine was impressed by his house and that she could likely see herself moving in there if they were able to make it past decision day. Sadly, that likely won't be happening. Next, there's Dominique and Mac. They have several discussions over the course of this episode, and the reoccurring theme is that Dominique is extremely judgmental of Mac in all aspects, while Mac is giving Dominique much grace. And as an outsider looking into their connection, I can say that I see where Dominique and Mac are coming from. With Dominique, I think she truly came into the process wanting a ready-made man, complete with a house, good credit score, great healthcare benefits, that she was physically attracted to, and that shared a lot of things in common with her. In other words, Dominique was looking for that one in a million type of guy. Mac, on the other hand, was looking for someone that would treat him with the same grace that he treats them. Sure, physical attraction is important, but not as important as character and integrity. So Dominique and Mac continuously butt heads over issue after issue, and Dominique isn't impressed with Mac's personality, nor is she impressed with his living situation. As Mac tries to explain his living situation to Dominique, she tries to call Mac a hypocrite for being unwilling to settle down in Nashville, but jumping into the process like married at first sight. And again, in my opinion, Dominique has the right to want what she wants and have her standards. But also in my opinion, Dominique's lack of maturity and understanding was starting to peak during this episode. In other cultures, what Mac is doing with his living situation is extremely appropriate and smart. He gets to save money while sorting out where he wants to live. And if Dominique is unable to appreciate that, then they really don't need to be together. And if Dominique isn't a ready-made woman herself, then it would definitely be hypocritical for her to expect a ready-made man. But that's just my opinion, and I'm sure the comment section will be on fire when it comes to talking about these two. But next, there's Nicole and Chris. After the group dinner, Chris was sitting by himself and crying. Now, we saw this happening during the previews for the episode, and naturally, the assumption was that Chris and Nicole had some sort of falling out. But the previews were definitely a fake out, and Chris was crying over the fear that his dogs wouldn't be allowed to come to the new apartment. Now, because I'm not a huge dog person, I almost feel bad in saying that I wasn't moved one bit by the scene, or at the thought that he wouldn't be able to move his dogs into the free apartment. But luckily, Nicole came to save the day and apply some critical thinking skills to the situation. Nicole decides to make a few calls, pull a few moves, then bada bing, bada bang, she comes up with a plan where her friend can look after her dog while Chris has his dogs in the apartment at all times. I'm glad that the crisis was averted, but this was pretty much the extent of Nicole and Chris's storyline for the episode. Now, what I will say is that I was highly impressed with Nicole in this episode, and for the season as a whole. There have been a number of amazing women who were cast on the show, but were matched for horrible husbands in the past seasons. But I view Nicole as an amazing wife, who was matched with somebody that would at least meet her halfway on things. And as a result, the future is looking very promising for the both of them. I think the only other woman on this season that comes close to putting in the same level of effort to making the marriage work is Jasmine, which is pretty sad in my opinion. But lastly, let's talk about Shaq and Kirsten. Sadly, there's not much to talk about these two. They have the shortest amount of screen time out of all the other couples, and Kirsten is still giving Shaq the indication that he's stuck in the friend zone with no hope of getting out. I was glad to see Kirsten at least allowing Shaq to kiss her on the forehead, but this was a good night scene, and I guess that Rome wasn't built in a day, but I do wonder what happens between the two of them when the cameras are not filming. But this marks the end of the review. If you have any questions or comments related to the episode or the review, feel free to leave them below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.